before we get to our predictions for this weekend's games, we're going to go over the kind of the coaching carousel has begun moving. So there was 3 jobs that became open during the regular season. Carolina Panthers had fired Frank Reich. Josh McDaniel was fired by the Raiders in season, and Brandon Staley was fired by the Chargers in season. Sunday night, the broadcast wasn't even over for Sunday Night Football, and Arthur Smith was out in Atlanta. Ron Rivera was fired by the Washington Commanders yesterday on Monday. And this one, probably the surprising one so far. I'm not going to say it's incredibly shocking, but I think it caught a lot of people off guard today. The Tennessee Titans firing Mike Vrabel earlier today. So those are the jobs that are definitely open.
To our credit, though, the Vrabel firing was on the board. To our credit, on the board.
I honestly, man, I wasn't that surprised by it. The last couple of years they've disappointed big time. Even in the years where they had gone to the postseason, they were disappointments. We talked a couple years ago how they were the most fraudulent number 1 seed in a conference in a long time. And I saw a stat today. I didn't have time to go back and check if it's accurate, but I saw somebody say that the Titans haven't scored 30 in a game in like 2.5 years.
What?
Yeah. So again, wow. I didn't have a chance to go check it. It actually wouldn't surprise me because I feel like that offense has been a bit disappointing. But out of these jobs that we know are open, Mike, I'll start with you. To you, which job is the the diamond, the shiny gold toy here? Which one to you is the best job to take?
I mean, I think there's one position that has something that neither of the other positions currently have, and that's a franchise quarterback. I think the diamond in the rough here is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think they have their guy in Justin Herbert. I think you're going to find a coach that's going to center around Justin Herbert. I get it. The Carolina Panthers have Bryce Young, and the Raiders situation with Aiden O'Connell wasn't the most fitting. And I know taking the Chargers job, you're going to play Kansas City twice, but I don't want anything to do with Desmond Ridder. If you're Washington, if you're a guy who wants his own quarterback, you have an opportunity there. And personally, I think the Vrabel situation alone is solely because what is going to happen in Tennessee. Derrick Henry is gone. I think they end up trading DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. I get it.
Rightly
I
so,
think,
probably.
I think it's going to be a complete rebuild in Tennessee. Like I said, Derrick Henry's gone. You trade D-Hop. There's some pieces on that defense that can get you back some draft picks. I think that's the reason why Mike Vrabel was let go, because I think they understand it's going to get worse before it gets better in Tennessee. Vrabes did a great job, but it's going to get real ugly in Tennessee. I think the Chargers, I get it, Austin Eckler's a free agent this year, but you still have Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is coming back from the injury. Quentin Johnson, their first-round pick this year, if you can figure out how to make him as explosive as he was at TCU, he's a weapon. There's going to be pieces that are going to be available. The offensive line isn't the greatest, but I've seen worse. The defense with Khalil Mack and the guys that they have there with Bosa, they're in a decent spot that they're the right coach and a couple pieces away from being a team that should be contending for an AFC wildcard spot and or the division if the Chiefs do not address their problems at wide receiver going into next year. So the diamond in the rough for me right now is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers.
EJ, without repeating an answer, if the Chargers is off the board, what's the next most desirable job?
I mean, it's tough because the Chargers was the number 1 pick, obviously. Although I don't like the front office at all. I think they're cheap as hell.
Yeah, I mean, are they gonna finally decide to commit to wanting to be a winner? And I'll have to see it.
Right. I will say I am intrigued by the Commanders because no Daniel Snyder. I want to see how this.
Yeah, they've hired like outside firms and stuff to be
and some
part
smart
of this
guys
process.
too. Bob Myers, very smart guy too, for the record, built the Golden State Warriors dynasty. So, the Commanders is very intriguing, only because I feel like they couldn't do worse than Daniel Snyder. Let's see what they do now. Clean house, the whole nine. Do they keep the enemy? Not keep the enemy? Well, we'll see.
No shit.
If you're Washington, though, you have what, the 2?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Ernest. All right, Ernest. You're the head coach / GM of the Commanders. Are you drafting Drake May? Are you drafting Michael Penix? Or are you taking the best available player?
Oh my God. Because I mean, Sam Hell fell off the cliff like that end of the year. I was okay with Sam Hell up until like probably week 12, week 13. You gotta go quarterback.
But are they a hey, Jake Browning, hey, Garner Minshew, hey, a piece that makes sense that you draft somebody in the 2nd or 3rd round that you can develop for the next couple of years, and you don't let a game-changing wide receiver like Marvin Harrison or a game-changing offensive lineman go at 2.
I was going to say, I mean, look, I love Terry McLaurin, and I know he can only do so much,
right?
Without a lot of support there. But if I'm Washington, I'm either taking an offensive lineman or I'm trading that pick for multiple picks that I can use for guys on my offensive line and guys that can help rebuild that defense where you traded the 2 fucking best players on your defense in the season, one to the fucking 49ers. So like I'm using that number 2 pick because look, I mean, yes, Drake May. I mean, there's a lot of people I know. Thank God Kyle's not here, otherwise his head would have fucking exploded to hear us talking about Drake May. But there's a lot of people. Even a guy like Kyle loves and respects, Joel Klatt, that is high on Drake May. That there's teams that are going to want him. There's teams that are going to want Michael Penix. There's teams that are going to want Marvin Harrison Jr. So use that pick for capital and really start to rebuild this team.
It's really an option.
Yeah, because look, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer about the prospects of Michael Penix and or Drake May and or any other quarterback that may be taken in the first 5-6 picks. But how many quarterbacks that get taken in the first 5, 6, 7 picks end up flopping, right? I mean, look, 49ers, Brock Purdy, the Tom Brady, Tony Romo. I'm using the grandest examples, but sometimes Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick, right? Mm-hmm. Like sometimes those guys that were really good, in on the smaller stage end up being the best guys on the biggest stage because they had to work harder for it. They may not be the most talented in the entire world, but like they had to work harder. They had to earn it. They know what it means. I'm not saying that guys drafted number 1 overall don't appreciate it. But I think there's a reason that there's value in deeper picks. So if I'm Washington, you're not going to fix this thing. You're not going to fix this team with a number 2 overall pick.
Drake May does not make you 6 wins better. Marvin Harrison does not make you 6 wins better. But getting 2 offensive linemen, signing a guy like Gardner Minshew or even Jacoby Brissett, or staying with Sam Howell for another year, and
Cooper Rush is probably going to be out in the wild this
season. The only way
Jake Browning. I mean, there are pieces there that with the right guy, if it's Bieniemy, if it's Harbaugh, whoever it is, there's also the potential that the guy who won the Heisman Trophy may fall out of the first round, depending on how good of a combine he has. You're telling me right now that Jaden Daniels with the 2nd pick of the 2nd round, and you trade out of 2 and you go and you move to like 10 and you get another pick in either the 2nd round this year or another first round or next year, and you can do some things to fix this, and you can spend some of the $90+ million in cap room that you have to address some problems that you have on the defensive side of the football. And guess what? There are going to be pieces that are going to be available this year, free agency wise, on the offensive side that you can go sign and spend money on. I'm looking at you, Michael Pittman Jr. I'm looking at you, T. Higgins. I'm looking at you, Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler. There's ways that you can improve this if you spend the money. Daniel Snyder, the last couple of years that he was in DC, refused to spend the money. So guess what? If this new ownership crew wants to find a way to make this team competitive faster, it's not Drake May. It's not Marvin Harrison.
The
It's
vibe I'm
draft capital.
The vibe I'm getting for you guys is that as a complete, the entire roster of quarterbacks we all think will be in the draft, a little overvalued. That's the vibe I'm getting
Yeah,
from you guys.
maybe. Well, I think it depends. I think it just depends on the team.
I just don't like Drake May.
I think Drake May is a little overhyped. My concern with Michael Penix, I know there's a lot of people that want to down on Michael Penix because of what happened last night. What happened last night from an offensive perspective is not the thing that should alarm you.
No.
As it pertains to Michael Penix. The thing that should alarm you is this guy has had 2 right ACL tears. He's had a shoulder repair, and last night I was like concerned that his spleen and or kidneys exploded. Like he's a guy that gets beat up. Okay, he's a guy that has had 4 straight college football seasons where he has finished the year hurt. Okay, that to me is where I would be a little bit alarmed. I'm not saying I'm not going to take him in the first round, but that would be my concern if I'm a GM.
Personally, I don't think he goes in the first round. I think the injury history coming into the National Football League will do damage to his draft stock.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the teams that need to address the quarterback position, we did that a little bit on the FKC Fantasy Hour a couple of episodes ago where we went through the divisions and we were like, who's in need of a quarterback? Who's dying to have a quarterback? A couple of teams on this list, Washington, Las Vegas, there are not a lot of teams right now that you're like, hey, I need a starting quarterback because that's going to change the direction of my team. But the teams that do need him, they need him right now. And unfortunately, you're going to put Penix in a situation where he's playing behind, for a lack of a better term, a shit offensive line.
Yeah.
And he's going to be running for his life and can potentially re-aggravate said injuries. There's a guy currently playing in Baltimore that they finally gave him weapons. They finally gave him an offensive line. And look, he's going to win the MVP this year. Cut and dry. Lamar Demetrius Jackson is going to be the MVP winner this year. But it's because they did the things around him to make him better. Yeah. They didn't have to rely on him carrying the ball 50 times a game.
Right.
He could stay in the pocket and throw the football. He could run and throw the football. He didn't have to be a running back playing quarterback. He could be a quarterback playing quarterback.
Yeah. For the record, I agree with you saying, afraid to pick. I'm with you, afraid to pick. We watched it.
Yeah, and outside of that, like if I'm looking at jobs that are definitely open right now, I mean, obviously the Bears job could still come open. The New England job could still come open. I think the Bears job has some intrigue there, especially if you go get Marvin Harrison.
Well, I think if you're the Bears, I think that's where I think Jim Harbaugh should consider going, if that is a reality at some point.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes to the NFL, I think the 2 places that are the most likely landing spots, in my opinion, would be the Chargers if they want to open up the checkbook. Because let's be honest, Michigan has a big offer ready to go for Harbaugh. We know that for a fact. That's been heavily reported. Or the Bears, because the Bears actually are in a pretty decent spot. They made the trade with the Washington. They're rebuilding that defense. You have weapons on offense. You have a quarterback that the city loves. I know Kyle and there's mixed opinions on Justin Fields, but the city loves him, and he got that team to 7 and 8. Down the end of the line here, towards the end of the year. So there's potential there. You put some offensive line pieces, you add a Marvin Harrison, and I think that offense is ready to go. Beyond the Chargers, and the in Washington, which is definitely an intriguing job. I think the Raiders is an interesting one. I mean, I know they're probably they should just hire AP. Like he has changed that culture and they believe in him. And that's a team that has. I mean, you have two good running backs. You have arguably the best or one of the best receivers in football. You have a great young tight end in Michael Mayer. You have a good defense that is, backboned by Max Crosby. Go get a quarterback, add a couple of pieces around him, and you have a really good team in Las Vegas. So that's the third job to me that's really a nice looking job. I mean, they have a lot of dead money in old coaches right now.
Yeah, exactly. Gruden and
if there's an organization that has money to spend based on their ownership, it's also the Las Vegas Raiders. So.